Hello, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Monday, the 9th of May. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about one aspect of life that I don't talk a lot about. I'm not even sure if I have at all. I'm a priest, and I am an Anglican priest, and I have no kids, I'm married, but did you know that I am a military spouse? My husband is a padre, or an Anglican priest, in the Canadian Armed Forces, and that's why we're in Wainwright, because he's posted here as a senior garrison chaplain. But being a padre, or being a military spouse, is a whole different world, and something that I think it's overlooked a lot. We have in Canada, at least we used to have, I think we still have, but they aren't really recognized, these Red Fridays, where people were encouraged to wear red on Fridays to support our troops. And we had a long history in Afghanistan where we lost a lot of people, not nearly as many people as the United States, but per capita we lost a good percentage, well into the 150s of people who died, and so many more who came home physically injured and mentally injured. And there's always more work can be done to support our troops and things like that. But I think something that often gets overlooked is the support we need for the spouses and the families of our military members. I have the privilege of being involved with the Military Family Resource Center in Wainwright, a really good group of people, great volunteers and staff who work their hardest to do what they can to put into place programs and activities and resources for the families of military members and for the members themselves. And there are so many ways that the military does actually implement things to help. And that's great. But one of the things that I think goes not stated, it's understated, it's not stated enough, is what they term the strength behind the uniform. And while the governments, the federal government and the Canadian Armed Forces and the Department of National Defense have done a lot of work over the years about highlighting the strength behind the uniform and that campaign, I think sometimes we get a little bit lazy about that and recognizing just how important it is to recognize and honor those people, those men and women who are spouses of active military members and veterans, those who have retired or who have medically released or have released from the military but carry with them the role they played as members of our Canadian Armed Forces. Some people joke about, when we hear about somebody being posted or we have to move again or we never did unpack the boxes from our last posting. Joke about things like, well, if the military had wanted you to have a spouse, they would have issued you one. Things like that, as an old joke. It's still around, and in some places, some people really do sort of work on that model. That's not really healthy, but there's always this sort of question about how do we deal with things. One of the things as a military spouse you have to deal with, and depending on your trade and what your member spouse is doing, where they are. If they're Navy and they're hard sea trade Navy, then they're probably going to be on the east or west coast. So you're going to stay in Halifax or Esquimalt. And sometimes the Navy folks have an opportunity to sort of grow up and be there. I met some really good people when we were in Halifax who have stayed there the whole time. We were there for 7 years, and we've been gone there for 3 now. And those folks have been there for years and will probably remain there until they retire, because of the nature of the work they do and how that works. So for those families, they have that opportunity to really hunker down in a community. The kids get to go to the same schools, live in the same houses, make the same friends, and their military family experience is different than those who maybe are posted every couple of years. Now, for those of you who aren't military, posted, like the word posted, means that you're transferred, basically. It's like having a job transfer from one branch to another or one office to another. So, for instance, when my husband, Rob, who went Reg Force, he'd been a reservist. When he went Reg Force, he went to CFB Borden in Ontario to be a chaplain. And so his first posting was Borden. And I joined him there, and we were there. He was there for 4 years. I joined him there after a bit of time from when I was working. So I was there for about 3.5 years. And then he was posted to Halifax, where we were there for 7 years. Then he was posted to CFB Petawawa in Ontario, and we were there for a year. And then we were posted here to Wainwright, and we've been here. We're coming up on 2 years in August. So postings are these positions where, depending on what your job is, you get sent to do that job in a new location, or you might get promoted and sent to a new location to do your new job in your promotion. And that's what happened when Rob was posted from Petawawa to Wainwright. He was promoted to lieutenant commander. And that's Navy speak. For in the Army, that would be a major. For those of you who are more used to American Army titles, he would be a major. But in the Navy, it's called lieutenant commander. So when you're posted, you have to pick up stakes and move. Now the military, we're very blessed. The military moves us, so they come in and they pack the boxes and they move your furniture, and then they come and they unpack your furniture and put it in your house where you tell them to put it. They put your beds together and all of those things, and then they will unpack your boxes. I never let them do that beyond the kitchen, because they move. There's usually a couple of them moving faster than you are, and you brand new place, you don't know where to put stuff. So I just take my time. That being said, I'm usually done unpacking within a week, because we're not there long enough to sort of live in the boxes. I need to feel like it's home. So I'm, after a week, I'm really on Rob to get our artwork hung up and get furniture placed properly, because we might only be there for a year. So let's make it home while we're there. So that's one of the things about postings. One of the things about being a military spouse is that you are always ready. Whether you're willing, you're always ready and able to pick up stakes and move, which means if you have kids, they do too. And that can be really hard, because depending on where you're moving to, there may not be a lot of kids in the military where you're going. Now, in Halifax, there is a massive base in Halifax, CFB Halifax, but Halifax is massive itself, and there are lots and lots of schools with lots of kids. And it isn't always the case that your child will be in a classroom that has other kids who understand what it's like to be military, or whose teachers understand what it's like for your mom or dad to deploy. And so those are special circumstances that are really hard on children, on families. And so not only postings where you're moving from school to school, because, probably we all know people who went to the very same public school from kindergarten to grade 8 and then went on to high school and went off to university with their friends. Military children are often uprooted from schools and sent to places where they have to learn, they have to meet new people. They might even have to learn a new language if they're posted from an English-speaking province to Quebec, which is French-speaking, or vice versa. If they're coming from a French-speaking family and posted someplace else in the country where English is the only language spoken, we end up with some pretty resilient kids, and some kids who really have some skill sets when they've graduated high school. Some of it, which means some of them are bilingual, which you can't buy that kind of experience. So postings can be an exciting experience. I love moving. We moved around a lot. My dad was a bank manager, so we moved a lot in those days, and I love moving. But for a lot of people, the moving's hard, especially if you didn't grow up a military brat, and most military spouses didn't. So when they marry someone, they fall in love with someone who's in the military, they're entering a whole new world, a world that does indeed have things like they'll move us, and they'll pack our things for us and unpack them, and we have insurance if something goes wrong, and they will pay for meals and hotel stays and things like that. But at the same time, there's the psychological toll, like you're moving away from family and friends, and you're going places where you've never met anybody. You may not be for very long. You might have trouble finding a place to live, and you're told that here you go. It's not a choice. You're going. And that can be really difficult. The other part of being a military spouse is getting used to deployments. Canada, for a very long time, really didn't have that many deployments. We weren't at war. When I was growing up, we had deployments of people like my cousin, Ronnie. He was in Cyprus, and people would be in Golan Heights and places like that. But we didn't have massive numbers of soldiers out and about around the world. However, when Afghanistan happened, we started to see massive deployments. Gagetown, Valcartier, Edmonton, people from all kinds of bases across the country, Halifax and Esquimalt, the ships were going out, up Artemis and things like that. So people, all of a sudden, we saw an uptick in deployments, and families and even the armed forces themselves had to learn some old lessons in a new way. And how do we deploy? How do we help our families? That's where the Military Family Resource Centers come in and do a really great job, because they recognize the very specific and unique needs of those military families. But the truth is that we, as military families, we need the support of the community, the people that we work with, the people we go to school with, the people who play soccer and hockey with our kids, who your life doesn't get disrupted every couple of years, or you don't wake up every morning knowing your spouse is gone for months on end, not knowing whether they're going to be okay, not wanting to watch the news because the news doesn't always tell the whole truth, or the truth it's telling is only a part of the truth. It is a terrifying thing to watch the news and not knowing that that ship that is being talked about, where a helicopter has gone down, or there's been a death on the ship, or there's been an accident, or a man overboard or something. It's hard to watch the news trusting that it's not going to hit the news before the family's been told, and knowing you haven't heard anything, so everything's okay. Because the fact is, your heart still jumps and your stomach still flops, thinking, oh my God, what if something's happened to my spouse, or my child, or my dad, or my mom? Living as a military spouse or a military family is a unique and very challenging thing. It has incredible benefits and incredible gifts, but at the same time, it is something that not everybody is called to. And so if you are a military member, spouse, or family member, or a military member, please know that you're not alone, and reach out, ask for help, talk to SIFMAP, talk to the Military Family Resource Center on your base or your garrison or your port, wherever you are, your dockyard. Reach out and ask for help if there's something that you need. But then also be open to talking to teachers and priests and people in your churches or people in your community to help them understand the needs that you have or your family has. If you are not a military member or a military family member, but you're just somebody who may know somebody who is, please pray for them. Pray for that family. Pray that, and pay attention that when they say their husband or their wife has deployed, that's just a word to you, but that is a whole set of circumstances to them. They need a phone call to see how they're doing. If something has happened on the news, it won't hurt for you to knock on the door or give them a call or an email and say, I'm thinking about you. How are you doing? They may just need to have a cup of coffee. They may say, you know what, we're fine, we're good. Or maybe they really feel lonely and they could really use a friend. But there is a whole different way of being when you're a military family. And I really do encourage you, especially all of you who aren't military, to pray for those military members that you might know or might be in your communities, or even if they're not, to get to know some of them and reach out to them. But always, always be aware that they are serving you, and they may or may not come home. And if they do come home, they may not come home the way they left. And their families are the ones who really have to help them deal with that. And then they have to deal with it too. So give them your support, encourage them, and don't ever take for granted the military members in your community or their families, because we need your help, we need your prayers, and we need your love. Thank you from one military spouse to all of you for all that you do to support our military communities, both here and elsewhere. God bless you. Have a great day.